All right, let's get everything ready to actually start animating. The first thing I want to show you is my user preferences, because I use things slightly differently to the default. So when you see something flash up here on my screencast keys, I don't want you to get confused. So let's bring this up. F4, bring up my preferences. And under the key map, the main changes that I do is I'm a right-click selector because I'm old school and it's actually a faster way for working, especially when you're doing animation. But that's personal preference. I use the spacebar for tools, just also personal preference, and the A button, I have enabled it so that if I double press it, it's going to select and deselect everything. The tilde action, that's the tilde button, the little squiggle, I bring up my gizmos with that. It's very handy when you're animating. And something else that's really handy is this tab for pie menu. Now when you're a modeler, it makes sense to hit tab and jump in and out of edit mode, and then you can bring up all the other modes with control tab. But when you're doing animation and you're doing rigging, it makes sense to flip that. So basically I hit tab and it brings up the pie menu rather than control tab. It's really just a speed up for my workflow. There's a few other small little things, but nothing major. They are the big changes there. And also I'm using Blender 3.0 Alpha. I'll bring up the splash screen here. This is for testing purposes. Anything that I show here is also going to be available in the 2.93 onwards. I'm just using this as a chance to test out things and report any bugs when I find them during working. Hopefully I don't find any bugs in this. Okay, so that is my user preferences. Now we're going to talk about file structure for animating our friend Melvin here. So let me just bring this guy over. So we're going to work in a project folder. I'm going to call it Melvin Run, and everything is going to be under that. I'm going to have two folders under that. One is called Anim. You can probably guess that is where we're going to stick all of our data that is not related to animation. Totally wrong. This is where we're going to put our animation files. Yep, so here we go. That's you can see I've already done a rehearsal, and this is where we're going to be putting our animation working file, and we're going to link in our character, which is going to be in the character folder here under Melvin. This is our rig file here. So I'll give you the structure to download. Obviously these files won't be in here, but this is where you start working, and this is, then it'll link in. That'll make sense in a moment. So let's get everything ready for linking. I'm starting with a brand new file just to show you. I'm just going to go, there we go. Boom. This is my default layout, but you will probably be looking at this. So let me just bring that up, and my screencast keys have gone off. Let's turn them on again. So we're going to get everything ready for linking in. So I'm going to use my camera, but I don't need it for now. I'm going to use it later. So I'm going to select it and then invert the selection with Control I, and then delete everything else. And with this collection, might as well name it. Let's just call it camera. And some other stuff to do. I'm going to save my file before we link in our character. It's going to make it a little bit easier, but I want to do the rest of the setup. Over here in the render properties, we're going to use Eevee. And what else do I need to change? There is one thing that I changed, the output settings. Well, actually, it's under my head. Maybe I'll duck. No, you still can't see it. I'll make this big. So this is what I'm looking at here. In my default settings, I just have saved this in here. So every file that I'm working on, if I hit the / here, see / render, when I render stuff out, it's going to create a folder inside the current working file, the directory that we're in, and then it's going to put all those renders in that folder called render. So that's what I do there. Everything else we're going to change later. So 1920 by 1080. Oh, big thing, we're going to be animating at 30 frames per second for this one, so that you can use it in your run cycle in a game or anything like that. Okay, so my file is ready. I'm going to save it. So I go File, Save As, and I want to save it in that animation folder, right? So this is that animation folder, and I'm just going to give it a name, Melvin Run _1. The reason I use the underscore with the number is I can hit the plus on the keyboard and the minus to increment that number and quickly do incremental saves. Or you can do the same thing with this button here, plus, 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 minus, minus, minus. And the reason it is red, it's saying, hey, warning, there's a file already called that. Do you want to overwrite it? This is just my starting file, so yes, I do. Bam. So there we go. We are ready to link in our character. I'm just going to hide this collection and then go over into my scene collections. So that when I link in my character using library overrides, it's going to bring out that whole folder or the whole collection into the scene level rather than the active collection, which was camera. So this is library overrides. We're going to go File, And now, do we want a link or append? We want to link it in. The reason we're linking is if we make a change to any of our to our rig file, any of those changes gets propagated to everywhere where we've linked it in. We don't have to fix it in every single file. Plus, it's going to save your space on your hard drive because you're only linking in the same character. You're not copying the same rig over and over and over again. And this rig is small in size, but some rigs can be really massive in size. So you're going to run out of space on your hard drive. Okay, so I'm going to link in. Then we're going to navigate to the file that we want to link in. So we go up one into our character folder, we drill down into the Melvin folder, and then we've got the file here. Now when I click on this, it's going to give the subdirectory of all the stuff that's inside the file. Now I want to go to collection, and I want to link in the master collection, which is this one here in capital letters saying Melvin. It's the one that's shouting at you. I also want to make sure that relative paths is on, because if we disable this, it's going to use an absolute path. So that means if you move it on your computer or something like that, it's going to break. If we use relative path, it's always going to look in that same folder structure where that rig is. And that's what we want. Okay, link that in. So now we can't animate this guy because he's just an instance. So we are going to create a library override. There is two ways to do that. We go Object, Relations, Library Override. Or if you're like me and you can't be bothered to remember where everything is in the menu, you can hit F3 for search and then type library. And you can see here, Object Relations, make library overrides. Boom, whoops, that just brought up the menu. I'll just do that again. And it just says, do you want to confirm? Yes. And I moved my mouse before it confirmed. Okay, so now we have a collection with our character up here. What am I going to do? I'm going to change my view here, my viewport shading. I'm going to enable textures so you can see our beautiful colors. And there's another thing that I want to do. I don't want to be able to select the rig, the mesh. I only want to be able to select the rig. So we're going to enable that in our filters up here in our outliner. I'm going to click here. And this means that we can turn off the selectability for that whole collection. So Melvin Geo, let's disable that. So now I can't accidentally select that mesh. I can only select the rig, which is what we want. Okay, one more thing to do with the linking, that is we need to link in the UI script separately for this character. And I'll just show you. So we just go to link again. Now we're looking inside the same file, but we need to go back up. Actually, I'll just do it again. So we're going to navigate to that Melvin rig again. And rather than going into collection, we go into the text. And this is going to show you all the text files that is in that file. And this one here, this is our script. So I'm going to say link. Now the reason we link in the script is for the same reasons. If I make a change to that script, if I find an error or I want to add some functionality to it, that change is going to be propagated into all the files where this UI script is linked into. So I'm going to now need to run that script. So I can just change any one of my windows temporarily to be a script editor or a text editor, or you can go up here and go to scripting, and you can see we've already got one here. Now by default, you already have this tab, so you don't need to create it. Just click on it. And in the text part, I want to bring up this text here. And you can see the reason that also a good reason for linking is you can't accidentally change it. So all I want to do is run it. So we just hit the play button, and then we can go back to our working place here. So now that we've got everything set up, I'm going to do one more thing with our layout. That is going to create a window. So here you can see I'm just going to split my window, and I'm going to do a horizontal split. Now if you accidentally choose the wrong one, you can just hit the tab key and that will flip it. So I'm just going to create an editor down here, an animation editor. And you can easily switch between the graph editor and the dope sheet with Control Tab. So I'm just going to choose one of these and then bring up the action editor. When you work on the dope sheet, you want to be working on more than one action at once or more than one character. When you're working in the action editor, you're only working on that one action. This is what we want. So to jump back and forth between the graph editor is Control Tab. So this is a good way of working. It saves you space on your screen here. Now I'm ready to save. So I go File, Save, and I'm going to save over my Melvin 1. Cool. That is my setup. So now I'm ready for animation.